Welcome back to another V-Rising video. This is going to be a fun one that is going to be based solely on speculation for what is to come in version 1.0 that is releasing May 8th of this year, so in exactly 1 month. Disclaimer, I have not played the beta. There's currently a beta going on. I have no idea what it is. I haven't seen any information regarding it, so this is just in case anyone's thinking I'm breaking some kind of NDA, I have none of that information. So that's just, disclaimer for everybody. This is purely based off of the dev blogs that the devs have released and me just kind of speculating based on the information we have of what I think might be the case when the game is fully launched, for those who are curious. So this is kind of similar to what I was doing pre-Gloomrot when I was speculating on the Gloomrot changes. I love doing this kind of thing, just rambling and theory crafting. So let's go over what we have here. So this is actually probably one of the most interesting changes overall that's happening, is the way they're changing spells. So if you are not familiar with what they're doing, they're essentially getting rid of the ability to unlock specific spells from specific bosses. So in the current version of the game, whenever you kill Clive the Firestarter, you get Veil of Chaos. Now what's going to happen when you kill Clive the Firestarter, you're going to get a tier 1 Chaos spell point. And what that can be used for is essentially picking in the Chaos tree. Here are the tier 1 spell points, and you can pick one of these abilities with that spell point. And then there's also going to be an increase of ability of tier up to these ones here, which is, these are better ones. And then there's the ultimate ones. So obviously you can't kill Clive and then just get Merciless Charge. You can't kill Clive and get, but you also can't kill Clive and get Veil of Chaos anymore, which is interesting. From what I understand, you can't. I'm not 100% sure. It just seems like that's what they're showing with this right here. So, yeah, so I have essentially gone through and kind of labeled what I think is going to be the case. But before we get into that, just really quickly, there's some very key information here. It says that they have laid it out. So each tier represents the complexity rather than strength. So the weird thing with this to me is that they are basically saying, well, first of all, they're assuming that the abilities that are gated back here are strength or are normally stronger than the ones over here, which is kind of funny, if that makes sense. Like, they're saying, well, now it's just these are the complex ones, not the strong ones. And I'm like, well, what do we mean when we say strong? Like, do we mean like strong according to you guys or strong according to people who've played the game a long time? So, but that's neither here nor there. Now we're talking about complexity. So based off of this information of what they consider complex, I think I may have been able to figure out the majority of the abilities that we currently know that are in the game and where they're going to be. Also, disclaimer, there could be so many other spells they've added. So we're gonna go here. Obviously, this is, great little spreadsheet. I love my spreadsheets. So essentially, I just put a 1 next to, I think if it's a tier 1, and a 2 next to, I think if it's a tier 2. Important information really quickly is that they said here, the second tier of spells will be unlocked fairly early in your journey into Dunley Farmlands with Vincent the Frostbringer and Krieg the Undead General. So if you don't know what these two unlock right now, these two unlock the barriers. So Vincent unlocks Frost Barrier, Krieg unlocks Ward of the Damned. So according to that logic, these are tier 2 bosses now. So if that's the case, to me, I could be cold. And then on top of that, we look here and Chaos Barrier is on this upper tier. So to me, that would mean that things that are shields, like Ward of the Damned, Frost Barrier, and probably Lightning Curtain will be tier 2 spells. That's my guess. It seems like that would make sense. On top of this, if we look here, Void is currently a tier 2, and Veil of Chaos is a tier 2. So to me, kind of, if this is a consistent pattern, it would tell me that anything that's similar to Void and anything that's similar to Veil of Chaos would probably be in the tier 2 range. So what does that look like? Okay, so Void tier 2, probably Blood Fountain tier 2. Chaos Valley tier 1, this is tier 2, but it's probably a tier 1. Sanguine Coil, probably tier 1. They have Power Surge as a tier 1, so Blood Rage 100% will be tier 1. Like, it wouldn't make sense if Blood Rage, these are basically the same spell. Veil of Chaos tier 2, all other dashes, probably tier 2, that's my guess. So like Veil of Chaos and Veil of Illusion, there's not really much different between the two of those. You know, it's like one's dashing twice, one dashes then returns. I don't know. To me, that's probably a tier 2 spell, and it's probably consistent along with the other dashes, because all of the other dashes have like, you know, that similar kind of feel. They're all dashes anyway. There's a couple of confusing things that I'm not sure about. For instance, Bone Explosion is very similar to what Void is, so I'm not sure if Bone Explosion will be a tier 2 or a tier 1. To me, it seems like a tier 1 because it's just not a complicated spell. You kind of just throw it out and then it works. However, same thing with Void, so I'm not really sure why Void is tier 2 and this is tier, or Void is tier 2 now. Regardless, Death Knight, I would probably have put that as a tier 2, even though it's extremely easy to use overall. To me, it kind of seems like a tier 2 thing because does have some little kind of tricky things with it. I don't know. Whatever. I put tier 1 on this because I wasn't really sure if... So Ward of the Damned, we can pretty much assume that this is going to be a tier 2. Soulburn, if this isn't tier 2, I'm going to be confused because while it is fairly straightforward, it's also kind of not. I mean, I don't know. It is pretty mindless to just like use, but it also has really small range and it's an instant. So I don't know. I kind of put it as a tier 2, but I could be wrong. This could be a tier 1. Corrupted Skull, I mean, what's the difference between Corrupted Skull and Chaos Volley? I mean, it's pretty much the same idea. And then, so over here we have, this is where I was kind of confused as well. Phantom Magus, it's probably going to be a tier 1, similar to Power Surge and Blood Rage. It's very similar in that regard. Spectral Wolf, to me, is a tier 1. You just throw it out, and then it just does its own thing. Mosquito's probably a tier 2, so that's why Death Knight might be a tier 2. I don't know. It could be a tier 1, I guess. But it feels like a tier 2 kind of spell because like it's the whole fear thing and everything. And I don't know if somebody who knows how to take advantage of, like, let's say, I'm just thinking like if you're an absolute beginner at the game, if you're using a mosquito and it fears someone, you're going to be like, what is this doing? Us veteran players, we understand what this is, what it means and how powerful it is. But I don't know if a new player would be able to figure that out. Where I am confused is Mistrance and Wraith Spear, because both of these seem kind of like tier 1 abilities in terms of straightforwardness, but they do have tier 2, like somewhat complex aspects to them. So Mistrance is almost identical to Bloodright, except that once you use it, you get to like pick a spot to teleport to. So to me, that's kind of a little bit of, a little complexity there. So I could see it being a tier 2, but I don't really know. Same thing with Mistrance, like it's not that much different from the other like Shadow Bolts and things like that, except that when you use it, it like lunges you away from the position or the direction your cursor is facing. So I can see that aspect being like a complexity thing. So that kind of being a tier 2. However, it could also just be a tier 1. So these are, I'm kind of confused about, but I feel like these I'm probably correct with. Again, this is all assuming all of this stays the same. And we go on to the ice spot here. So if Void is a tier 2, Ice Nova has to be a tier 2 in my mind. Like, it's very similar in that regard. Ice Block personally feels like it should be a tier 2 because there is a lot of like a new player who doesn't really understand. Like, this is going to confuse them so much, I feel like understanding how to Ice Block correctly. I mean, it's not like it's hard. It's just somewhat confusing. For like if you're unfamiliar with how Ice Block works. So if you play things like Dota, then it's not going to be that confusing, or MOBAs and whatnot. That's not going to be that confusing, but like for a new player who's not familiar with it, they might not really understand what the power of this ability is. So, however, what else would be tier 2 if this is, like what else is going to be tier 1? I don't know. Crystal Lance, I think this is going to be tier 1 just because like Shadow Bolt or Chaos Volley or whatever, like Aftershock and Chaos Volley are kind of set it and forget it abilities. Crystal Lance is kind of like that to me. Same thing with Frostbat. I mean, Frostbat has to be tier 1. And then they already said Vincent is going to introduce a tier 2 ability. So to me, that means Frost Barrier is probably tier 2, especially when Chaos Barrier is that way. And then over here, we have Cyclone, Discharge, Polarity Shift. I think these three, I don't know though. Again, this is very similar to what Mistrance is like. So this could be a tier 2 as well. Ball Lightning feels like a tier 2. If it's, if Void's a tier 2, Ball Lightning feels like a tier 2. Lightning Curtain definitely feels like a tier 2. So if you're unfamiliar with how this works, it goes down from where your cursor is. So if it's a very precise ability, You know, it comes out basically instantaneously wherever your cursor is whenever you cast it. And unlike something like, let's see, unlike something like Chaos Volley or Aftershock, unlike something like Aftershock, where you like cast it in a direction and it kind of just goes in that direction and then it does its thing, this is like, it's a very precise ability. You have to like put it in front of you or put it a little bit in front of, like a little further ahead of you, or maybe on top of an enemy. There's a lot of things you can do with it. So I feel like Lightning Current would be a tier 2. And then Discharge. Yeah, so here's the other thing. I could be wrong. The Veils may not all be tier 2s. You may have, in fact, they actually, some of them might be tier 1s now I'm thinking about it. Like a Veil of Frost might be a tier 1, and Ice Block may be a tier 2. Veil of Storms might be a tier 1, and like Discharge could be a tier 2. But Cyclone to me is a tier 1. You just use it and it does its own thing. Polarity Shift, probably tier 1. Yeah, not too sure. Okay. The next thing about spells I want to talk about was the fact that I have a feeling either we're going to have, okay, the ultimates is a weird situation. This is something that I find very weird. So the reason why is we know we are getting a new ultimate here from Niklaus, right? This is obviously Niklaus. He's summoning. This is exactly what this is Niklaus's ultimate. Like, look at, this is literally Niklaus's ultimate. So we're getting a new ultimate, which means we're probably going to see Fallen Angel gone from like the regular ults. So my question is, are some of them, okay, there's multiple things here. One, this could very easily just not be all the spells we have available. There could be, actually, you know what? I think it is. It says you now have access to 2 of 4 potential ultimates by the end of Act 1. So what that means is you can pick between Merciless Charge and, assuming, Chaos Barrage, or Niklaus's little summon dudes, or probably spiders, I would imagine. So yeah, so I'm assuming Fallen Angel probably comes out in somewhere else, assuming it's still in the game at all. I feel like it's probably still in the game. But I don't really know how to feel about this. This is such a strange situation. I don't know. The reason I'm saying this is being able to start with. So I'm trying to figure out how you could basically break this. One of those things. What I mean by break it is, if I can unlock a undead ultimate point in tier 1, what's stopping me from just getting Volatile Arachnid and then blowing every single boss out of the water between then and like all of tier whatever? Like, you don't get spiders until Spider, and not saying Volatile Arachnid's always good in every single situation. You should just always use it on every boss. It just does so much damage. And if you're using it early on against like simple bosses, I feel like this thing's just going to absolutely destroy everything. Could be wrong, but I don't know. It just seems like kind of nuts to have that so early. And then to me, I don't know, Wisp Dance very well could be changed to something else. It used to be, what's it called? Raging Tempest, but yeah, Wisp Dance, I don't really know. So here's the other thing is, we know that the shards are going to be unique. They're going to give you unique ultimates. So we saw in another update that the shards will give you a unique ultimate. If you have that ultimate, it's going to overwrite your ultimate and give you a unique one. And I'm assuming Gore Crusher is still going to give a shard, and therefore his ultimate probably will be a Wisp Dance upgrade, like a, overwrite your ultimate for Wisp Dance. Kind of weird, but whatever. I'm hoping that all of the ults that you get from shard bosses are like S tier crazy. I feel like if they're not, it's kind of lame, honestly. Imagine imagine if Heartstrike is still just the best ult in the game after all of this happens. Like, you get shards and you're like, oh man, I have to wear a shard. I don't get to use Heartstrike anymore. If that's the case, I'm going to be sad. So next thing I want to talk about real quick, after, obviously going through all this, was this right here. So they talk about, there's another way we're going to be able to do stuff. The Altar of Stygian Awakening is basically going to be a new station that's going to give us access to passive abilities. So there's really no way I could like even like guesstimate at what these all mean. Like some of these clearly, like this is some kind of healing thing. I don't know what it is, but it is some kind of healing thing. It could be like whenever you heal, increase your attack speed for all I know. You know what I mean? Like I have no idea what this is. The only thing we do have access to is the first thing here, blood spray. And this is such a crazy ability. I don't even know what to think about this. Critical strikes leech 5% health. I'm assuming that's 5% of your current health and not max health. Or is it 5% of the damage you did? Or is it 5% of the enemy's health? So I don't really know what that means. Then there's the other thing is, the other thing, part of this is 25% chance to spawn a blood orb when killing a target affected by leech. So the insane thing for this, first of all, just reading this, I'm like, okay, so don't ever use this in PvP. This Niklaus ult, never use this in PvP because somebody's going to use leech and they're going to explode all your skeletons and every one of them has a 25% chance to drop a blood orb. So they can just like heal themselves. So imagine if warrior blood doesn't get nerfed, or like the new like warrior style armor or whatever happens, and you use that. Imagine all that's going on, and then like you're like, oh, I finally did a lot of damage to this tanky guy, and then he uses this, and just pops like 3 blood orbs or something on your summons, and then just heals himself like crazy, like you're a boss. He's PvEing against you, and you're like, oh, what? However, there is also the weird thought is if the enemy can also access the blood orbs, like in the current state of like bosses. So if I hit a boss, and you know it pops the blood orbs, a random player could come up and just take the blood orbs. So in this situation, if I like heart strike or something through this ult, and it just blows everything up, I believe heart strike applies leech. I believe, I could be wrong, but even if it doesn't, there's a lot of ways you can apply leech that's not really that hard to deal with. So imagine like all these skeletons run after you, you heart strike them, and then you like dash through them with, you know, Veil of Blood with the jewel that can mark the things you dash through with leech. And then they all explode and kill each other and they drop like 3 orbs. I'm wondering if the enemy who summoned them can also pick up the orbs. So kind of an interesting like double-edged sword there. That is a very interesting concept. But overall, I'm actually super, super excited about these passives. I feel like this is going to be one of the biggest ways to mix up the game. Like I'm assuming we'll probably be able to pick like a single passive from every tree. So like 1 tier 1, 1 tier 2, 1 tier 3, and you'll be able to just kind of change it as you want to use it. That is such an interesting concept to me because it's going to dramatically change everyone's quote unquote build. I would imagine there's probably going to be some best in slot stuff for a lot of things, and some builds are probably going to be just even crazier than they are now. But I'm really curious to see what these all are. So anyway, well, that is probably going to be it for now. I love theory crafting all of this, and if you enjoy this kind of thing, if you like theory crafting, or you like talking about V-Rising, or if you're new to the game, or you're looking for some help or guidance, feel free to check out the Discord. So I made a Discord for everybody. Anyone who's interested, check out in the description. And if you would like to see more videos like this, if you like theory crafting and V-Rising, if you're excited for 1.0, if you want updates as they come out, that is what I do here. So feel free to subscribe as well. But anyway, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and we will catch you in the next one.